right, well, here's the question. Why does the Bible call Samson a man of faith? When it seems that the whole story of Samson is a cautionary tale of what not to do.
Okay.
Right. So, many of our listeners are probably remembering back to those Sunday school. Well, I don't know. I think our listeners tend to be a little more biblically literate, but there may be many listeners who are going back to those Sunday school days going, I don't remember a lot about Samson other than he had long hair, and then
he was really strong.
Some Delilah chick cut it off. So let's talk about Samson.
Okay. So Samson's story is found in the book of Judges, which is far to the left, but not all the way in the Bible. His conception is talked about in chapter 13, but then his story is chapters 14, 15, 16. Yeah, it ends at the end of 16. And basically he was the last of the judges of Israel to be listed. During this time period, Israel was in a pattern of falling away from the Lord and being overtaken by their neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, it was the Philistines, and then being in slavery and oppression to them, and then repenting, turning back to the Lord would bring a judge and deliver them from their oppression. And Samson was the last one of those recorded.
Okay. So Samson was the judge.
Yes. And he was God blessed him with incredible strength.
Okay.
He's like the biblical Hulk. Which is kind of appropriate because he had some issues as well, as the Hulk does. There are quite a few examples throughout this section. At one point, he picks up a jawbone of a donkey and kills 1,000 men. At another time, he captures...
Well, but wait a minute. Which men were they?
The Philistines.
Okay, I mean, so is that a good thing or bad? Like, because, if I was talking about my friend, who was at war in Iraq, and it was like, Chris Kyle. Godly man. If you guys don't know who Chris Kyle is, he was the American sniper credited with the most confirmed targets.
Right.
Who just passed away. His wife is just a precious woman of the Lord. And so, I mean, he obviously killed many, many people on the battlefield. So...
Okay. The reason that was an issue for Samson was because he was a Nazirite and he took an oath that basically, and one of the things that would nullify and void the oath or break the oath was getting near a dead body.
Okay. Is that in the Bible somewhere that he took the Nazirite vow?
It is that he took the vow, yes.
Uh-huh. Where's that at?
That is in Judges chapter 13.
Okay.
And then the specifics of the Nazirite vow, if you want to look it up, is in Numbers chapter 6 of what that meant he could and couldn't do. But one of the things he wasn't to do was get anywhere remotely close to a dead body. And so killing 1,000 men kind of hinders that.
Not to mention the jawbone of the donkey.
Right.
Okay. So he broke his vow right there. So okay, what else?
He also, at the beginning of chapter 16, he went to a prostitute.
Which is normally not a good... I mean, almost always a bad idea.
Yes. I can't think of an instance where...
Well, there was Hosea.
Unless you're... Well, okay. Yeah.
But almost always a bad idea.
Yes.
All right.
He married he married one Philistine woman and then had relations with another, neither of which really worked out well for him.
Okay.
And so he messed up a lot.
All right.
And of all of the judges, when you read his story, it's like, wow, this guy was...
I also remember a story of Samson in there where, just because as a kid, I just, and as an engineer, I just wondered about the practicality of how this would play out. But, he took Fox, so he had a riddle, and again with these women, the he had the riddle, and there was a contest about like if he won, he was going to get some stuff, and if they won, they were going to get some stuff, and yada yada. And of course, his wife told the answer to the riddle. He was going to win, but the wife told the answer to the riddle to the other guys.
At the last second.
Yep. And so he gets upset about it. He takes these foxes, and he takes these torches, and he ties the foxes' tails together, and
the
torches to the tails. Is that right? Is that how it goes? Okay.
He put them in pairs, tied their tails and torches, sets them ablaze, and sends them into the Philistines' food supply, basically.
Yeah, so like I think that's a cool story, but probably not so much if you're the fox or the Philistines.
And not something you really think of as an act of a
good godly
man. Godly man.
But I tell you, this guy's a guy after my heart because he, I get Samson. Samson makes sense to me.
Yes.
All right. Tell us about the haircut.
The haircut. Okay. So after his wife dies, and after he goes and stays with the prostitute for a while, he falls in love with this other gal who's also a Philistine. Her name is Delilah, and she, because she's a Philistine, all of the Philistine people that were going after.
Was she really a Philistine?
Yes.
Okay. This is verified. We checked the scripture on this.
Okay, Judges chapter 16, verse 4 and 5.
Okay.
And after this, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, "Seduce him and see where he gets his strength, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him, and we will pay you the sum of money."
Okay, so we know the Philistines came to her, but
I guess it doesn't specifically say. Yes. Okay.
I'm not sure that she was, but right now I'm not sure she wasn't. So
I don't know.
All right, moving on.
All right. Okay, so basically they wanted her to seduce him and find out how he gets his huge amount of strength, so that way they can mitigate that and overtake him.
Right, Samson smash.
Yes. And he tells her, and so she goes to him and says, how would someone subdue you if one wanted to do that, hypothetically? And so he gives her 3 different answers, all of which are untrue. One of them is new ropes, one of them, and so she tries it, and he breaks them all. And then she gets upset with him, saying, "You've lied to me, you've made me a fool." And then he finally tells her,
"You know what? Like the first time I told you what made me weak, and if I woke up and you had tried it." And not only had you tried it, but there were a bunch of bad people in the closet waiting to kill me. I'm not sure that I would go on with the next step.
I know.
And you notice each one of those steps gets a little bit closer to reality.
Yes, each one does. But in verse 16 of chapter 16 it says, "And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day and urged him, his soul was vexed to death."
Happy wife, happy life, man.
Yeah. That's in Proverbs. Not directly.
I don't think it is, but okay.
And so, just day after day of nagging, I guess, he caved.
Yeah.
And so, he finally told her, "I'm a Nazirite. No, my hair has never ever been cut from childbirth. And if my hair were to be cut, I would lose all my strength."
Right.
And so, he falls asleep that night. She cuts his hair. He loses his strength.
Superman goes to Clark Kent.
Pretty much.
Right.
And the Philistines come in, bind him, gouge out his eyes, and take him away. And then a little bit later, they're throwing a massive party because they got him. And then some of the Philistine rulers said, "Bring him up here so that we can celebrate. And he's going to entertain us because he has no strength." So they brought him into the building where they were, which was supported by massive pillars. It was a temple of one of their gods. And so they put him in the middle of the temple, and he puts his hands on the 2 main support beams of the building and prays that the Lord would give him strength one last time, and so that he could destroy the building, destroy all of them, and God answers that prayer. He does, and he dies in the collapse as well.
All right, so this guy.
Yes.
The jury is out right now. There are men and women taking sides immediately about this guy. So we'll pause while you pick sides. So this guy, he's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to touch dead animals, and he's killing these guys with the jawbone of a donkey. He's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to drink anything with grapes, but we find him in the vineyards of Timnah.
Yes.
He's a Nazarite. He's not supposed to have his hair cut, and yet
his hair gets cut.
He ties fire to foxes and lets them go. He, sleeps with a prostitute. He, yada, 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 fill in the blanks. Okay. And yet, Hebrews, chapter
11,
verse
32
says,
this chapter is... The author of Hebrews has just gone into a big long thing about different Old Testament people that were heroes of faith. And so in verse 32, he's running out of paper or whatever. And he says, "What more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Japheth, and David and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped from the sword," on and on and on. So Samson is clearly included in this list of men of faith, men of God.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, why?
Why? And what is faith?
Good question.
It's being sure of what we hope for, and certain of what we do not see. Faith is not living well. Living well is a result of faith, or should be.
Right.
But I can have faith in this chair that tells me to sit down. If I don't have faith in the chair, I'm not going to sit in the chair because my break.
Right.
I can have faith in an airplane. I get on an airplane and go fly.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have faith in United Airlines, I'm going to buy Southwest.
Yes.
That's a risky gamble. All right. So faith is believing the promises of God.
Yes.
Agreed?
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Samson, in order for Samson to have believed the promises of God, we have to look at in order to determine whether or not he believed the promises, we have to find out what was promised.
Okay.
Make sense?
Logical.
All right. So when Samson was born, in chapter 13 of Judges, we come down to verse 5. This promise is being made to Samson's mother.
Mm-hmm. By the angel of the Lord.
Yes, verse 3. The angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her. Okay. So this is the angel of the Lord making a promise to Samson. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "Indeed, now you are barren and shall have borne no children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and not to eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come upon his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines." Okay. And so there's many conjectures on why the haircutting thing gave him strength. Some say it's because it was the last part of the vow he broke.
Right.
Because he had already broken the part about the dead body and the wine. Or grape.
Right.
Grape of any sort. And some people say that that's because it's the one thing that the angel of the Lord specifically mentioned.
Okay.
We don't know. We just know that we read the story and that was the last straw.
Right.
Okay. So the promise to his mother was that he would be a mighty man that would begin to deliver the Israelites out of the Philistines' hands.
Right.
So he's called a man of faith because as you read through here, Yeah, he probably shouldn't have defeated all the Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. But nonetheless, how many Philistines did it say he took on with just the jawbone of a donkey?
1,000.
Right. These guys had swords and spears and pitchforks. And this guy went, God said I was going to deliver us out of the Philistines' hands, so okay. I mean, despite the fact that he used the jawbone of a donkey, which he should not have.
Right. He just picked up whatever was closest, and that's what it was.
It takes faith to go tally-ho against 1,000 Philistines.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
And if you'll remember, the Philistines are what Goliath later, that's his people, his descendants. So not little windy people.
Not at all. So it takes faith when the children of Judah come down. Give me just a minute to find this. There's a passage in here where it says chapter 15, verse 10. And the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" Of course, Judah is a tribe of Israel, so these are Israelites. So they answered, "We have come up to arrest Samson, to do to him as he has done to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of rock at Edom and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines rule over us?" Well, we know that because Samson is delivering them.
Right.
That they rule over us. What is this you have done to us? And he said to them, "As they did to me, I've done to them." Like, they did it first, dude.
Yeah.
Right? And so verse 12 says, "We've come down to arrest you, that we may deliver you into the hand of the Philistines." Now check this out. So Samson looks at his brothers from the tribe of Judah and says, "Swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves." So they spoke to him, saying, "No, but we will tie you up, deliver you in their hand, and we will not kill you." So they bound him with 2 ropes and brought him up from the rock. So he didn't want to kill his brethren.
Right.
Now it takes faith to say to these 3,000 men that came down, "I'm going to let you tie me up and deliver me." Because they could have chopped off his head and his strength wouldn't have... I mean, that's a haircut nobody wants. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It takes faith to say, you know what? I'm not going to hurt you because you're my brethren. When you give me to those guys... When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting against him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. This is when he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it, and killed 1,000 men with it. So, it takes faith to tell your brothers, "Hey, you know what? There are 3,000 of you. I'm going to let you tie me up, deliver me to the enemies. Give me tied up to 1,000 of them. Because I believe that the God that told me I'm going to deliver us out of the Philistine hands is going to be with me."
Yes.
So, yeah, and it took faith for David to be David. And we all know that David's called a man after God's own heart, but he had an affair with Bathsheba. Mm-hmm. It took faith for Moses to deliver the children of the children of Israel out of Egypt. But he killed a man and ran from Pharaoh. We follow in the footsteps not of perfect people, but of imperfect people who have faith in a perfect God.
Yes.
And so, the only person who lived a perfect life was Christ.
Yes.
And we have faith in Him and what He did on the cross. And if any of us were perfect, then we wouldn't need Christ. So, I mean, that's kind of the catch-22. We're not judged based on our good works. Now, there will come a time where we're told about the bema seat of Christ, where all this stuff that was not done with good intentions will be burned away like chaff. But that's not what we're talking about here. When it comes down to heaven or hell issues, when it comes down to salvation or eternal fire, that has nothing to do with our good works.
Absolutely.
That comes down to whether or not we have faith in His good works and His promises. So that's why Samson, after all of his mess-ups, is called a man of faith, because he believed the promises that was given to him